One of the mysteries of Britain's ancient Stonehenge.
Stonehenge. Stonehenge.
Stonehenge.
Stonehenge.
Stonehenge. Stonehenge.
Unknown civilization living right here of Bronze Age people.
English Heritage say the new centre's aimed at giving people a much better experience before they get here to the stones themselves.
Stonehenge. Myth and legend have always surrounded its origins. It's been called both a healing site and a place of human sacrifice.
For thousands of years, one ancient monument has stood silently on the plains of Wiltshire, England, challenging everything we thought we knew about the people who built it. Stonehenge has been called a temple, a calendar, a place of healing, a burial ground, and even a gateway to something beyond human understanding. But for centuries, one question has remained unanswered: what lies beneath the stones? The massive blocks standing above the ground are only the part we can see. Beneath them is an invisible world that remained untouched for thousands of years, hiding clues about the true purpose of this mysterious structure. And now, using technology that ancient builders could never have imagined, scientists have been able to look beneath the surface without moving a single stone. Ground-penetrating radar has transformed the way archaeologists study ancient landscapes. Instead of digging into fragile sites, researchers can send electromagnetic waves deep into the earth and analyze the signals that return. Every change in soil density, every buried object, and every hidden structure leaves behind a digital fingerprint. When researchers scanned the landscape around Stonehenge, they were not simply looking for a few forgotten artifacts. They were searching for answers to one of archaeology's greatest mysteries. Who built this enormous monument? How did they organize such a massive project thousands of years before modern technology? And why did they choose this exact location? For generations, Stonehenge was viewed as an isolated circle of giant stones standing in an empty field. But the new scans revealed something different. The monument was not alone. It was part of a much larger prehistoric landscape filled with hidden features, ancient pathways, pits, and structures that completely changed the way researchers viewed the site. The discovery suggested that Stonehenge was not just a simple arrangement of stones. It was the center of a carefully designed environment, created with purpose and precision. The builders were not randomly placing enormous rocks into the ground. They were shaping an entire landscape. One of the most surprising discoveries came from an area near Stonehenge known as Doington Walls. Beneath the surface, researchers identified a series of enormous underground features arranged in a pattern unlike anything previously known in Britain. These deep shafts formed part of a huge prehistoric structure that showed a level of planning far beyond what many experts had expected from Neolithic communities. The discovery forced archaeologists to rethink the abilities of the people who lived more than 4,000 years ago. For a long time, ancient British societies were often described as simple farming communities with limited tools and technology. But the evidence emerging from Stonehenge painted a much more complex picture. These people understood measurement, geometry, astronomy, and large-scale organization. They could coordinate huge groups of workers across generations. They transported massive stones over enormous distances. They created a monument aligned with events in the sky and built a landscape that connected Earth, humans, and the cosmos. The question was no longer whether these ancient builders were capable of creating something extraordinary. The evidence suggested they clearly were. The bigger mystery became, why? Why would a society thousands of years ago invest so much time and energy into creating Stonehenge? What purpose could justify moving enormous stones across hundreds of miles, shaping the land, and dedicating generations of effort to a single monument? Some researchers believe Stonehenge was deeply connected to rituals and ceremonies. The alignment of the stones with the movements of the sun has long been one of its most famous features. During the summer solstice, the rising sun appears in a precise relationship with the monument, creating one of the most dramatic ancient astronomical events known today. But the new discoveries suggested that the builders were interested in much more than just the sun. Researchers studying the wider landscape found evidence that ancient people were carefully observing patterns in the sky. The moon, stars, and changing seasons may have all played a role in how Stonehenge was designed. This level of astronomical understanding is remarkable because it existed long before written records, advanced instruments, or modern science. Knowledge had to be passed down through generations through observation, memory, and tradition. Imagine standing at Stonehenge thousands of years ago. There are no electric lights, no cities, and no modern distractions. The night sky would have been completely different from what most people experience today. The stars would have filled the darkness, and the movements of the sun and moon would have been among the most important signals in human life. The builders of Stonehenge were watching those movements carefully. But the mystery goes even deeper. The stones themselves tell another incredible story. The massive stones at Stonehenge did not come from the surrounding area. They were transported from distant locations, including regions far away from the monument. Some stones came from Wales, while others originated from areas hundreds of miles away. Moving these enormous stones would be difficult even with modern equipment. Yet prehistoric people managed to transport them without engines, trucks, or advanced machinery. How they achieved this remains one of archaeology's most fascinating questions. The journey of these stones reveals something important about the society behind Stonehenge. They were not isolated groups living without connections. They had knowledge of distant landscapes, transportation methods, and cooperation networks that stretched across ancient Britain. The people who built Stonehenge were connected to a much larger world than previously imagined. But perhaps the most fascinating discovery is not just where the stones came from. It is what they may have been designed to do. For years, visitors have reported feeling something unusual while standing inside the stone circle. Some describe a sense of overwhelming presence. Others mention strange feelings of connection, silence, or even unease. Scientists have investigated whether the arrangement of the stones could influence sound. Studies using detailed models have shown that the circular design changes how voices and music behave inside the monument. Sound behaves differently within the stone circle compared with the outside environment. Voices can become stronger and more focused, creating an experience that would have felt powerful during ceremonies. For ancient people, sound was not just entertainment. It was part of ritual, storytelling, and spiritual experiences. A person speaking inside Stonehenge may have appeared more powerful because the structure itself enhanced their voice. The monument was not only something people looked at. It was something they experienced. The combination of massive stones, carefully designed spaces, astronomical alignments, and controlled sound created an environment unlike anything else in prehistoric Britain. And this raises a fascinating possibility. Perhaps Stonehenge was never meant to be understood as just a pile of ancient rocks. Perhaps it was designed as a complete experience, combining architecture, astronomy, landscape, and human emotion into one enormous creation. The discoveries beneath Stonehenge have shown that the visible stones are only one part of a much bigger story. The real monument extends far beyond what the human eye can see. But if these hidden structures reveal a civilization far more organized than previously believed, then another question remains. Who were the people capable of creating something this ambitious? And what knowledge did they possess that has been lost over thousands of years? Because the deeper scientists look into Stonehenge, the more it appears that the greatest mysteries are not above the ground. They are still waiting beneath it. The more scientists uncovered about Stonehenge, the clearer one thing became. This was not a random collection of stones placed in a field. It was the result of careful planning, deep knowledge, and a level of cooperation that challenged everything researchers thought they understood about prehistoric Britain. But the biggest mystery remained hidden in the question that has followed Stonehenge since the first researchers began studying it. Who had the power to make something like this happen? A monument of this scale could not have been created by a small group working casually whenever they had free time. The construction required enormous effort, constant organization, and knowledge passed from one generation to the next. The stones had to be selected, shaped, transported, and positioned with incredible accuracy. Food had to be produced for workers. Tools had to be created. Routes had to be planned. Thousands of people had to cooperate toward a single goal. This reveals something important about the society behind Stonehenge. They were not simply surviving from day to day. They were capable of thinking on a scale that stretched across centuries. The construction of Stonehenge was not a short project. It was a vision carried through generations. Imagine the commitment required. A person who helped begin the construction would never live to see the final version completed. Parents would pass the responsibility to their children, and their children would continue the work. The monument became a connection between the living, the ancestors, and the future. This may have been one of the reasons Stonehenge became so powerful. It was not just a building. It was a symbol of continuity. Every stone represented time, effort, and belief. But the discoveries beneath the landscape raised another possibility. The surrounding area suggests that Stonehenge was part of a much larger ceremonial world. Nearby sites, ancient pathways, burial areas, and hidden structures reveal that people were not simply traveling to a circle of stones. They were moving through a carefully designed landscape. The journey itself may have been part of the experience. People may have approached Stonehenge through specific routes, passing through different spaces before reaching the central monument. Every movement, every sound, and every visual detail could have been planned. The builders understood something that modern architects still use today. The environment around a structure can influence how people feel. A narrow pathway can create anticipation. A large open space can create awe. A carefully placed object can become more powerful because of what surrounds it. Stonehenge appears to have used these same principles thousands of years ago. But one of the most fascinating discoveries connected to the monument involves the origin of its stones. For a long time, researchers struggled to explain why the builders transported materials from such distant locations. If the goal was simply to create a stone circle, there were many sources of rock much closer. So why travel hundreds of miles? The answer may be connected to the meaning these stones carried. Ancient people often believed that places, materials, and objects had special qualities. A stone from a distant landscape could represent a connection to another community, another ancestor, or another sacred place. The journey of the stones may have been just as important as their final position. Each massive block carried a story before it ever arrived at Stonehenge. But the builders were not only moving stones. They were moving ideas. The monument connected different regions of Britain. Communities separated by huge distances became part of the same enormous project. Stonehenge may have been a place where people gathered, exchanged knowledge, performed rituals, and strengthened connections between groups. It was a physical symbol that many different communities belonged to something larger. However, the discoveries have also created more difficult questions. For decades, many people imagined Stonehenge as a peaceful gathering place where communities united together. But a project of this size also suggests the existence of strong leadership and social organization. Someone had to make decisions. Someone had to coordinate the workers. Someone had to preserve the knowledge required to create such a complex design. Whether that authority came from religious leaders, powerful families, or respected experts remains uncertain. But the evidence suggests that prehistoric Britain was far more organized than previously believed. These were people capable of planning decades ahead, studying the heavens, and creating monuments that still inspire humanity thousands of years later. And perhaps the most surprising realization is that Stonehenge was not only about the past. It was also about knowledge. The builders left behind a message written not in words, but in stone. They recorded their understanding of the world around them. They observed the movements of celestial bodies. They understood geometry. They recognized how materials behaved. They knew how spaces affected human emotions. They created something designed to survive beyond their own lifetimes. Today, modern technology allows us to see parts of Stonehenge that were invisible for thousands of years. Ground-penetrating radar, digital mapping, and advanced analysis have opened a new chapter in understanding this ancient monument. But every discovery seems to create even more questions. The hidden structures beneath the landscape reveal that Stonehenge was larger than anyone imagined. The distant origins of the stones reveal that ancient transportation was more advanced than expected. The acoustic studies reveal that the monument affected human experience in ways we are only beginning to understand. The astronomical alignments reveal that ancient people were carefully studying the universe around them. Together, these discoveries create a picture of a society that was not primitive, but deeply intelligent and highly connected to its environment. They may not have had modern machines, computers, or written records. But they had something else: observation, patience, cooperation, and an extraordinary ability to transform ideas into reality. Stonehenge has survived thousands of years because its creators understood something fundamental about humanity. People want to leave something behind. They want future generations to know that they existed. They want their questions, beliefs, and discoveries to continue long after they are gone. The people who built Stonehenge disappeared into history, but their creation remained. Every sunrise that passes over those stones repeats a moment that was witnessed by countless generations before us. Every visitor who stands inside the circle becomes part of a story that began thousands of years ago. And perhaps that is the greatest mystery of Stonehenge. Not how the stones were moved, not how they were arranged, but why humans, so long ago, looked at the world around them and decided to create something that would challenge the imagination of everyone who came after them. The ground beneath Stonehenge has revealed more secrets than anyone expected. But it may have only opened the door to a much larger mystery. Because if ancient people were capable of creating a monument this advanced thousands of years ago, what other achievements are still waiting to be discovered? The past is not always simple. Sometimes the oldest stories are the ones that still have the most secrets left to reveal.